studies from Yale University. He married his wife, Patricia, in 1963, and they are parents of 3 children, Matthew S. Holland, Mary H. McCann, and David F. Holland. To my 14-year-old son, who lives, eats, and breathes basketball, Elder Holland's legacy as co-captain of the Dixie College basketball team makes the grade of totally awesome. To my recently returned missionary son, who prior to his mission was mortified that he didn't get a haircut before Elder Holland visited our home, Elder Holland's comment at the time, "I like his hair," was the ultimate statement of approval. And to my wife, who experienced the mastery of his teaching as a student in his Book of Mormon class, he will always be the greatest of teachers who planted her seeds of faith. And as one who has had the privilege of receiving a sacred witness of his ministry, of being edified and sustained by his example of service and sacrifice, to me, Elder Holland will always be an anchor, an ambassador, and a sacred reminder to go forth to serve. Brothers and sisters, friends and neighbors, colleagues and associates, tonight it is an honor to introduce to you a man I respect, a leader I am honored to sustain and follow, and a brother I am honored to call my friend, Elder Jeffrey R. Holland. Elder Holland.
My goodness, David, that was extraordinary. Come back and we'll give you a PhD. Your Eminence, thank you for not only your presence and your reception of this award, but for these remarkable remarks that you have given. Very inspiring and very important in this day. You are a wonderfully, wonderfully impressive sight. I'm not sure exactly what I expected to see, but not all of you. Thank you for your attendance and what it means for interfaith activity in this community and for those scholarships, the recipients of them, and those who get a chance at an education and an opportunity in life that might not have had it otherwise. I'm very, very moved tonight, touched by what I've heard and seen and felt, and the pure goodness of the men and women in this room. I speak tonight as a Latter-day Saint, aware that we have Christian friends and Jewish friends and Muslim friends in the room, and perhaps even those not of any particular faith. But I consider you all brothers and sisters, friends, one and all, and I'm honored to be here with you tonight. I joined the chapter in paying tribute to His Eminence, a group, I should say, as we've visited here, so many friends, so many personal friends. I'm grateful to join you in paying tribute to His Eminence, Timothy M. Cardinal Dolan, tonight. It seems fitting that we're paying honor to Cardinal Dolan in the Riverside Church, something of a legendary venue for interfaith activities, including our own professional association dinners in recent years. I, for one, am grateful that someone drove me here, because I'm not a New Yorker and probably couldn't find the Riverside Church on my own, even if someone gave me the address and told me the name of the river. Which brings to mind one of Cardinal Dolan's favorite stories about Archbishop Fulton Sheen. Apparently, many years ago, the gifted and popular Archbishop was to lecture at Independence Hall in Philadelphia. The hall being only about 8 blocks from his hotel, he decided to walk. Got absolutely, totally, hopelessly lost. He summoned his courage and sidled up to a tough-looking crowd, smoking and drinking on the curb. "Pardon me, gentlemen," he said, "but I'm lost. Can you help me get to Independence Hall where I am to give a talk?" Well, the leader eyed him up and down suspiciously, didn't say anything for several minutes, and then kind of grudgingly gave him directions. As the Archbishop started to leave, the tough-looking kid said, "Father, what are you going to talk about?" Well, ever the evangelist, the famed speaker, replied, "How to get to heaven." To which the ruffian laughed and said, "How to get to heaven? That's a good joke. You can't get to Independence Hall." Now, when the bishop told that and when Cardinal Dolan told it, it had racier language than that. But in the day of social media, I could say it and it would be on the news at KSL before we're out of this room. So, on a night of interfaith goodwill, I suppose I am, and to this I address the Cardinal, I suppose I am in my own way the LDS Church's rather pitiful contribution to interfaith symbolism, in that I am the only member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles who comes from a Roman Catholic heritage. My grandfather Dennis was born in County Cork, a little farther south than County Cavan, where Cardinal Dolan's great-great-grandfather Patrick was born. Now, unlike Patrick Dolan, who emigrated to St. Louis, where cardinals are born and cheered, Dennis Holland followed his emigrating family to Montana, then to Colorado, and finally to Utah. Now, how he and my grandmother fell into the clutches of the Mormons is too long a story to tell tonight. But suffice it to say that my presence on this program is meant to be a genuine Irish offering to Cardinal Dolan, uninspiring as that gesture is turning out to be. Now, just after my call to the Quorum of the 12, I was invited to a farewell dinner for Archbishop William Wiegand of the Salt Lake Diocese. He was being transferred to a new post in Sacramento. As I greeted him that night, junior of juniors in the Quorum, I wanted to present my finest bona fides. So I strode up and said, "Bishop Wiegand, I want you to know that I feel much more at home here than will any of my other apostolic brethren. You see, my grandparents worshiped and were married right here in the Cathedral of the Madeleine by one of your predecessors. Not one of my Latter-day Saint brethren can say that, not a single one." Well, there was dead silence. That wonderful cleric was absolutely speechless. He didn't know whether it was a joke. He didn't know whether it was a lament. He didn't know what it was. He looked at me and looked at me, obviously stunned by what I had said. He started to speak, but nothing came out. It was clearly beyond him how a Latter-day Saint couple, future grandparents to a future LDS apostle, would have ever been married in a Roman Catholic cathedral by a Roman Catholic bishop. Sensing his consternation, I volunteered, Bishop, be peaceful. They were not Mormons at the time. They were perfectly devoted Roman Catholic couple receiving the marriage sacrament of their church just the way you would have wanted them to do. His countenance darkened, even a little more, which worried me. And then it brightened with a beatific smile rivaling any Easter morning sunrise. "Why, young man, are you telling me you have Roman Catholic blood flowing in your veins?" He practically shouted it. "That's the most encouraging thing I've ever heard about LDS leadership." Then he embraced me and said, "Stay close to me, my boy. You're redeemable." The only other interfaith story from Utah that I know is of the very popular and very funny longtime coach of the Utah Jazz basketball team, Coach Frank Layden. Frank is a very devout Catholic who loves his church and loves Salt Lake City, choosing to keep his residence there, even though he retired from the Jazz organization decades ago. He simply loves the city, including his bottomless reservoir of Mormon fans and friends. Once, when Frank was speaking to a group of those fans, including a whole host of Mormons, the folklore is that he said something like this: "Now, folks, this is a religious community, and you are religious people. I just want you to know that I too am religious. I am a God-fearing and prayerful Christian. I think you should know," he said, "that before every home game the Jazz play here in Salt Lake City, I walk up to the Cathedral of the Madeleine to say a prayer for my team. It's a wonderful experience and a tradition I cherish. Then, just in case the game might turn out to be close, I walk home by way of the Mormon temple. It doesn't hurt for a man to cover all of his bases." Well, enough of that. As we know, our theme for this year's dinner is built around the collective work done in caring for the needy by organized religions in New York and environs. At last year's event, we announced the rollout of Just Serve, a national program created by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to coordinate and facilitate those who wish to give community service. Just Serve has provided a wonderful contact with New York City's Service Division of the Office of the Mayor, as you've heard tonight, which is partnering with us to find volunteers for recurring community needs. Other recent interaction between LDS leaders and our Catholic friends include the partnership with the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops in one of the sweetest and strongest interfaith relationships that we have. We've been allies in fighting for the Russell Amendment, which ensures that the hiring protections for religious institutions, such as those affiliated with the Catholic University and Brigham Young University, that they're preserved so we can continue to fulfill our religious missions according to the doctrines of our faith, without fear of government punishment or reprisal. A sample of recent interactions in New York include over 100 LDS volunteers from New Jersey stakes partnering with Catholic Charities of the Paterson, New Jersey diocese to refurbish the straight and narrow residential treatment facility for those addicted to drugs and alcohol. That is the oldest community-based treatment center in the country. It includes local LDS missionaries volunteering time at the New York Catholic Charities Food Pantry in Washington Heights, at the Piscataway, New Jersey LDS Bishop Storehouse, making various in-kind donations to several Catholic charity food pantries throughout the area. The Westchester, New York Stake Relief Society, making quilts for the refugee families that Catholic Charities are working with. LDS missionaries volunteering at the opening ceremony of the Catholic Charities South Bronx Food Hub, and who are now assisting regularly at that marvelous facility. Westchester, New York State co-sponsoring a community event with the Office of the New York Attorney General, our Catholic friends, and several other denominations, which was designed to talk about religious freedom and educate people on their rights in New York State. In a related but slightly different vein, may I thank so many of you here who attended our VIP open house for the recently dedicated Philadelphia Temple. That was an interfaith courtesy to us of the First Order. Regarding that experience, may I share a paragraph from Bishop James Massa, who attended our open house and was planning to be here tonight. To my colleague, Elder Quentin Cook, who guided Bishop Massa and Monsignor Harrington through the temple, Bishop Massa wrote, "Our visit confirms the important relationship that has developed in recent years between our two faith communities. Owing to the outreach of leaders from both our communities in Salt Lake City, that relationship has afforded fruitful collaboration in the defense of marriage, human life and dignity, and religious freedom. Moreover, the relationship has also allowed many of us in different parts of the country rich opportunities to come to know one another as beloved friends and partners in a dialogue of ethical and cultural enrichment. We thank the bishop for that kind comment about his visit to Philadelphia. Now let me say a word about our honored guest, His Eminence, Cardinal Dolan. With his Irish charm and unshakable faith, he has won our hearts, and he wins the heart of everyone he meets. He's been as firm in his friendship to us in the LDS Church as he has been resolute in his many clerical responsibilities to his mother church. He is a delight in every way, as we've seen and heard tonight. As Senator Smith said, it is personally meaningful to me, I think to everyone who knows it, that 15 years ago when he was ordained bishop, he chose that episcopal model, ad quiem ibimus, Lord, to whom shall we go? That wonderful Peter's confession, with physical violence, political chaos, and moral compromise swirling around us in our world, with people groping for meaning and stability everywhere, no question in Holy Writ seems more relevant or urgent. The answer to that question holds the key to the future of the world. For as Peter declared for us all, truly Christ has the words of eternal life. In a recent homily, Cardinal Dolan addressed that chaos, that plethora of broken things surrounding us in society, and he asked, and I quote, "When we see these broken things, life in chaos, do we seek solutions from discredited peddlers of anger, division, and more violence? Or do we go to the Creator and consult the user's manual to fix what seems to be broken?" Timothy Michael Dolan has, from his childhood upward, looked to his Creator and devoted his life to the user's manual in an effort to fix broken things. All who've known him personally, and millions more who know his ministry, have been the beneficiaries of his talent and temperament for healing, for helping, for repairing what seems to be irreparable. This might be as good a time as any to show a video clip in which Cardinal Dolan said a wonderfully kind thing about our Mormon missionaries, specifically Elder Mason Wells, who needed healing, literally, after that horrific bombing incident in Brussels last March.
Everything that I've lived up until this point has fortified my personal faith that God is there. I know that I felt His love several times, and I know that if I can feel His love sitting on a sidewalk next to a destroyed airport, that God, He'll talk to His other children too.
Part of the interview with Mason Wells, an American missionary who miraculously survived 2 terror attacks. First, the Boston bombing, and now the attack in Brussels.
Joining us now is the Archbishop of New York, Cardinal Timothy Dolan. Cardinal Dolan, it's great to see you.
Thanks, Tucker. It's good to be with you. Blessed Good Friday. Thank you.
So what do you make of that? Here, this Mormon missionary was at the site of the Boston Marathon bombing. He was in France during the Paris attacks, and then he was, of course, in the airport in Brussels on Tuesday. He sees this as an affirmation of his personal faith. What can the rest of us take from this?
Well, first of all, what a great message for Good Friday, huh? I mean, in a way, he must feel like Jesus did on the cross. I mean, this horrible thing's happening to him, but yet in spite of this, in spite of this evil, in the face of this horror, he's able to profess his faith. What a great example for us. When you look at the world today, there's so much darkness, there's so much reason to doubt and get cynical, and yet you got a guy like this, Mason, who twice doing God's work is almost killed, and yet still enthusiastically confesses his faith in the providence of God. Boy, oh boy, what a beautiful Good Friday and Easter message.
His Eminence certainly has been a stalwart in defending religious freedom, another interfaith bond he has forged with us and with others. When he was president of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, he wrote to his constituents of, quote, the urgent need to safeguard religious liberty inherent in the dignity of the human person, close quote. Calling it the foundational principle of our country, its first freedom, he said to his fellow bishops, we share a common and compelling responsibility to proclaim the truth of religious freedom for all, so to protect our people from this assault, which now appears to grow at an ever-accelerating pace in ways most of us never could have imagined. And that was 2011. It was at that time that he established an ad hoc committee for religious liberty, inviting our friend Bishop William Lori to chair it. How prescient that move was, and what great work they have done. Why is religious freedom worth defending? Why is the right of conscience worth defending? In short, who cares about religion and religious motivations in the 21st century anyway? It's obvious that believers, religious people, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, people like you, those gathered here tonight, you care. But before it's too late, it should be obvious to everyone else why religion matters and why everyone should care. Will and Ariel Durant put the issue squarely years ago as they reflected on what they called the lessons of history. There is no significant example in history, they said, no significant example in history of any society successfully maintaining moral life without the aid of religion. If that is true, and surely we feel it is, then we should be genuinely concerned over the assertion that the single most distinguishing feature of modern life is the rise of secularism, with its attendant dismissal of, cynicism toward, or marked disenchantment, even hostility toward religion. Charles Taylor, in his book with the descriptive title, A Secular Age, describes the cold dimming of socio-religious light in this way. The shift of our time, he says, has been from a society in which it was virtually impossible not to believe in God to one in which faith, even for the staunchest believer, is only one human possibility among many others. In the 21st century, he writes, belief in God is no longer axiomatic. Indeed, in some quarters, it is not even a convenient option. It is an embattled option. But in fact, religion has been the principal influence, not the only one, but the principal one that has kept Western social, political, and cultural life moral to the extent that these have been moral. Granted, religion has no monopoly on moral action, but centuries of religious belief, including institutional church or synagogue or mosque going, have clearly been preeminent in shaping our notions of right and wrong. Journalist Will Salatin puts it candidly, religion is the vehicle through which most folks learn and practice morality. Brothers and sisters, friends, my declaration tonight is that religious faith has proven itself to be the most powerful and enduring force in human history. Roman Catholic scholar Robert Royal also made the same point, reaffirming that for many, religion remains deep, widespread, and persistent, to the surprise and irritation of those who claim to have cast it aside. Religious illusion, they call it. Those underestimated the indisputable power of faith. And a lot of people have underestimated it. In his new book, The Triumph of Faith, famed sociologist Rodney Stark writes, "For generations, the Soviet Union closed churches and persecuted believers. It mandated that all students at all levels of education receive classes every year in scientific atheism." That's their phrase. The Soviet government thought of itself as pushing forward the inevitable process of secularization, in which religion would simply disappear from the face of the earth. And what was the result? A national survey conducted in 1990, note the date, the Soviet Union was collapsing. They found in 1990 that after more than 60 years of intense anti-religious instruction, only 6.6% of Russians said they were atheists, only slightly more than those that were so identified in the United States. And what of that other great communist power in the world today? One of China's leading economists said recently, and I quote, "In the past 20 years, we have realized that the heart of your culture is your religion, Christianity. That is why the West is so powerful. The Christian moral foundation of social and cultural life is what made possible the emergence of capitalism and then the transition to democratic politics. We don't have any doubt about this," close quote. The indisputable power of faith, the most powerful and enduring force in human history, the preeminent influence for good in the world, the heart of our culture. These are some of the reasons why religion matters. Voices of religious faith have elevated our vision, deepened our human conversation, and strengthened both our personal and collective aspiration since time began. May those voices never be silenced. Let me close. His Eminence Cardinal Dolan has often spoke of Pope John Paul II's heroic and tumultuous 1979 return to Poland in what historians now call 9 days that changed the world. How, inspired by his presence and his words, a crowd in Warsaw, 2 million strong, chanted at the top of their voices to the grimacing of KGB and Polish communist officials, "We want God. We want God." Of that scene, Cardinal Dolan said, it was the primitive cry of faith, humanity's innate longing for the divine, a thirst denied, ignored, ridiculed, outlawed, and rationalized away for too long by the oppression of a regime that had vainly sought purpose in systems that forgot God. It was as if the Polish Pope had put on the lips of his people the pining of the Hebrew psalmist, "Like a deer that thirsts for water, so my soul longs for you, my God." Somewhere deep in every soul, that cry still reverberates. And under the right, or perhaps it will be the wrong conditions, it will find its way to expression. We want God. Just a week ago, I read in Time magazine a personal essay by Susanna Schwabdorf, who considers herself one of the nuns, N-O-N-E-S, not affiliated with any religion. At 56 million strong, she notes that there are more Americans unaffiliated with institutional religion, nuns, if you will, than there are Catholics and mainline Protestants who are. With fewer than half of the young adults ages 18 through 30 even sure that God exists, she feels that in a few years, the largest religion in the United States will be none. Then this personal reflection. She said her mother was Catholic until she eloped with her atheist German father. And though she was educated by the NUNS and had a college degree from the Jesuits, she never went back to church. That is, she did not go back until she entered the final terrible stage of emphysema that would kill her at 73. Almost by accident, she wrote, a month before she died, she stopped at Our Lady of Sorrows Church, where she had celebrated her first communion. Susanna went on to say, it was freezing, a November day, and for an hour, her mom, her oxygen tank, her uncle, and her atheist dad sat in the essentially empty church. I don't know if she prayed, Susanna wrote, but I do know that my mother had the certainty that she would go home, as she called it, where her long-gone parents and her sister were. Now here's my point in citing this essay in closing tonight. Mrs. Schrobdorf said, it was a comfort I envied as I watched her slip away a few days after Christmas. I could be grateful for the unending kindness of nurses and drugs, but when she was gone, it felt like a void had opened up. Then, as now, I longed for faith. That essential human need might just be proof that God really does exist, or so argues an observant friend of mine. We have innate craving, she said, for food, for sleep, and for love. And so perhaps a desire to identify with a higher power is not an accident of our design. That built-in yearning is there because there's something worth yearning for. It's the kind of logic that my mother, the student of Jesuits, would have loved. She concluded her essay. The built-in yearning one feels for religion, for faith, for God, it's there because it is something worth yearning for. It is also worth defending and worth living once we have defended it. I testify that instinct comes from before this world was and will continue after this world is no more. It is a light that is endless, a light that can never be darkened. It is the light of the world, the incomparable light of Christ, which is not to be put under a bushel, but on 1,000,000 candlesticks, until it brings hope to all of God's children in their journey toward the beckoning glow of the city of God. We're grateful tonight to honor His Eminence, Timothy Michael Cardinal Dolan, for the light he shines in such a selfless way. May his unique candle beam brightly for many, many years to come. And may yours glow just as brightly forever. Thank you all, and God bless you.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful to be gathered here together tonight. We're thankful for the people of many faiths that are here. We are grateful for the things that we have in common, Father. We are grateful that we can celebrate such wonderful men like Cardinal Dolan and Elder Holland. We're grateful for the words that they shared with us and for the inspiration that it gave. We ask for thy blessings to be with us at this time, that we might be able to go forth and to continue to serve thee. Help us to find those opportunities to build thy kingdom here